Hi! So, it's Kim again and I'm back finally after sobrang tagal na hindi pag-a-upload. Usually, I upload every week pero parang na-delay ako ng 3 weeks. So, wala akong upload for 3 weeks because I've been focusing on my health recently and then, work. Sobrang daming trabaho because year end and then bagong new year, so the company's trying to fix some issues and maraming realignment and all those things. So ayun, kaya medyo na busy, but it's 2024 finally, and hopefully we could take the bar together this September 2024, and that we come in prepared, and that by God's grace we will all pass, diba? Kasi konti lang naman na yung abogado eh. Okay lang naman pumasa tayo lahat siguro. So ayun, pwede na yatang mag-apply. I think Supreme Court released bar bulletin regarding applications last week, or was it this week? I'm not sure. Hindi pa ako nakapag-apply. But yeah, I'm planning to, and ayun, I guess it's time for us to prepare for it na talaga, yung todong preparation. And I'm here to help bar sibs. At the same time, while helping, I'm also helping myself. And also feel free to drop in comments kung meron kayong mga gustong i-share na materials or YouTube channel or anything that could also help other law students, like any resource really, so that we can help each other out. So ayun, for this video, we will be continuing with polirev. Gusto ko kasing matapos yung polirev, civrev 1 and crimrev this January. Yun yung goal. Dapat December, kaso medyo na yung timeline, parang hindi kaya. So, baka mag-upload ako ng sobrang dami to bawi. Tignan natin kung kaya. So, for this video, let's talk about the power of legislative investigation and oversight function of the Congress. So, legislative inquiries. Okay, isin mo natin yung notes natin. Refers to inquiries related to the implementation or re-examination of any law or appropriation, or in connection with any proposed legislation, or for the formulation of, or in connection with any proposed legislation, or the formulation of, or in connection with the future legislation, or will aid in the review of or formulation of a new legislative policy or an enactment. So this is also a power of Congress na parang mag-inquire. Hindi siya proceeding or hearing kung saan it's criminal and they can impose penalties and hold someone criminally or civilly liable. No, it's not. It's just an inquiry. It may be intimidating pag nakikita natin sa news, but really the very purpose is to conduct the inquiry in aid of legislation. So what does Congress do? Congress makes laws. So in order to make laws properly, they need information. Okay, they need resource persons. So it's like an interview, kumbaga, to aid them in writing better laws, parang ganon. Because again, civil proceedings, criminal proceedings, sa area to ng judiciary, sila yung trier eh. So, sila yung trier of facts, and sila yung determine if a law is violated or not, if a law is constitutional or not, if there is grave abuse of discretion or not. These are all the duty of the judicial department. So, Congress cannot encroach on that just because they can they have the power of legislative inquiry or legislative investigation, because it's a different matter. para lang siyang conference na tinatanong yung mga resource persons. Minsan na pag-uusapan yung mga issues medyo mainit, but that's all in aid of legislation. Pero alam niyo naman, politics medyo madrama, showmanship din, 'di ba? Kaya parang pero really the purpose is to extract information and use that information to formulate new laws if wala pa, or improve a current law. Ganon. Yun yung purpose niya. There is an instance which we previously discussed wherein Congress acts like a court, and that is during impeachment process lang, na yung Senate nagiging impeachment court. However, impeachment, again, it's sui generis. It's not a criminal proceeding. It's not a civil proceeding. You don't hold someone liable civilly or criminally or even administratively after an impeachment. The ultimate result of impeachment is removal from office lang. And once na na-remove na yung impeachable officer from office, then that's the time that the case may be filed against them sa proper court. Because, their immunities will be shed. So, ganon. So, the power of legislative inquiry may be exercised by each house of Congress. So, pwedeng House of Representatives or the lower house, pwedeng the Senate or the upper house, or even any committee thereof. Even if walang pending legislation, walang pending new law, so long as meron din namang guidelines para sa inquiry, so long as the inquiry is within the jurisdiction of the legislative body making it, and it must be material or necessary to the exercise of a power in it vested by the Constitution, such as to legislate or expel a member. So, ito rin, pwede rin purpose na expel a member kasi each house, again, is discussed, meron silang mga sariling rules. So, really, it's to, the purpose of a legislative inquiry is, again, just to inquire and extract information, to investigate something in order to aid them in making or improving laws or to expel a member. So the Senate as an institution is continuing, as it is not dissolved as an entity with each national election or change in the composition of its members. Basically, it just says that the Senate and the House of Representatives, they're institutions, regardless of the people composing it, even if it changes from time to time, because it's an institution. So what are the powers included in legislative investigation? First is the power to issue summons and notices. Anyone except the President and Justices of the Supreme Court may be summoned. Bakit hindi pwede si President and Justices of the Supreme Court i-summon? Kasi co-equal branches sila. So they can refuse. Nor may a court prevent a witness from appearing in such hearing. So kung hindi naman heads of the other two departments, kasi again, co-equal yung tatlong departments, then they may be summoned by Congress for the purpose of legislative investigation. Another power is the power to declare and or punish a person in contempt. Again, punishing a person in contempt is not a criminal or civil sanction or administrative sanction. Rather, to compel. Kasi if you just summon a person, pag hindi siya pumunta, okay lang ba? So, paano mako-compel, paano mafo-force yung tao na mag-appear at magpaka-hassle para mag-attend ng legislative inquiry kung okay lang naman pala, walang consequence na negative kung hindi siya pumunta. So, this is like to put teeth dun sa power to compel a person to attend the hearing. So, refusal to attend a legitimate legislative investigation or contumacy of the witness may be punished as a legislative contempt. So, it may include imprisonment for the duration of the session. Contempt is the disregard of or disobedience to the rules or orders of a legislative or judicial body or an interruption of its proceedings by disorderly behavior or insolent language in its presence or so near thereto as to disturb its proceedings or to impair the respect due to such a body. And lastly, another power included in legislative investigation is the power to determine the rules of its proceedings. So, limitations on the power of legislative investigation. First, the legislative investigation must be in aid of legislation. Second, it must be in accordance with duly published rules of procedures. And third, right of the person appearing in or affected by such inquiry shall be respected. Again, resource persons lang naman sila dyan eh. Not supposed to condemn the persons there. Although, yun nga, what happens in actuality is parang showmanship din because of politics, lalo pag televised. Termination of legislative inquiry of the Senate. The court rules that the legislative inquiry of the Senate terminates on two instances. First, upon approval or disapproval of the committee report and upon expiration of one Congress. So, Judice Rule restricts comments and disclosures pertaining to judicial proceedings to avoid prejudicing the issue, influencing the court, or obstructing the administration of justice. So, bakit natin dinidiscuss yung sub judice dito ngayon? For example, legislative inquiry, merong pending case yung kinakausap or yung resource person. Tapos magtatanong sila, for example, tungkol sa judicial proceeding. Pero yung judicial proceeding na to, hindi siya yung mga information hindi available sa public. So yung resource person can refuse to divulge such information because some disclosures, in order to avoid prejudice, diba? Kasi sometimes public opinion or issues, they affect the case. Not in a good way, diba? Parang, as much as possible, tinatry nating maging unbiased and impartial yung court, and yung decision dapat based purely dun sa facts and sa merits of the case and not public opinion, because public opinion is not always right, diba? Yung public opinion kasi nagsusway-sway yan. It could be right, it could be wrong. And the courts, during judicial proceedings, they shouldn't take into consideration public opinion. They should just focus on the facts of the case, the evidence presented, and the law, okay, as stated. So, yun lang. Therefore, the resource person or the person being quote-unquote interviewed during a legislative inquiry can refuse and use sub judice rule as basis. Post-enactment measures undertaken by Congress. First is to monitor bureaucratic compliance with program objectives. Second, determine whether agencies are properly administered. Third, eliminate executive waste and dishonesty. Fourth, prevent executive usurpation of legislative authority. And fifth, assess executive conformity with the congressional perception of public interest. In a way, parang check and balance din siya. What happens kasi is that Congress creates a law. And of course, there are objectives and purposes for that law. For even the creation of an office, it requires a law. Once a law is enacted, then the ball is nasa court na ng executive. Okay, so it's up to the executive to implement or execute the law. So, there can be post-enactment measures, pero Congress also has to be careful not to encroach dun sa implementing power of the executive. Kasi yung executive lang talaga yung may sole power to execute the laws and to implement the laws. Or else, there would be an encroachment, diba? So, there would be a violation of the separation of powers. However, Congress can investigate the situation, and then after investigation, after findings, then they can act on it, but they can't implement it for them. They can't implement the law themselves. So there's that very thin line. However, it's a sort of check and balance. And also, if they find out that the law has loopholes, for example, that cause the implementation to have issues or problems, then the Congress may address it by, for example, amending the law. But that's something that they can do without encroaching the powers of the executive or violating the separation of powers among the three departments. So, power of oversight has been held to be intrinsic in the grant of legislative power itself and integral to the checks and balances inherent in a democratic system of government. Oversight function or question hour. So, the heads of departments may, upon their own initiative, with the consent of the president or upon the request of either house, whether the House of Representatives or the Senate, as the rules of each house shall provide, appear before and be heard by such house on any matter pertaining to their departments. Written questions shall be submitted to the President of the Senate or the Speaker of the House of Representatives, as the case may be, at least 3 days before their scheduled appearance. Interpellations shall not be limited to written questions but may cover matters related thereto. When the security of the state or the public interest so requires, the appearance shall be conducted in executive session. Okay, so categories of congressional oversight functions. We have scrutiny, congressional investigation, legislative supervision. Yan yung tatlong yan. So what is scrutiny? It implies a lesser intensity and continuity of attention to administrative operations. So Congress may request information and report from the other branches of the government. It can give recommendations or pass resolutions. Yun lang yung magagawa niya kasi hindi niya pwedeng gawin himself yung hindi pwedeng gawin ng Congress themselves na sila mismo yung mag-aayos ng problema. They can just recommend and let executive do its job or pass resolutions for consideration of the agency involved. Why am I referring to executive lang, not judiciary? It's because these departments, these branches of governments, under lahat yan kay executive or kay president. So, ayun. Congressional investigation. While congressional scrutiny is regarded as passive process of looking at the facts that are readily available, congressional investigation involves more intense digging of facts. Yun yung legislative inquiry in aid of legislation, nung papatawag na. Legislative supervision, otherwise known as legislative veto, is the most encompassing form by which Congress exercises its oversight powers. So supervision connotes a continuing and informed awareness on the part of a congressional committee regarding executive operations in a given administrative area. So again, reports lang yan. They can't implement themselves. It allows Congress to scrutinize the exercise of delegated lawmaking authority and permits Congress to retain part of that delegated authority. So what is executive privilege? It's the power of the government to withhold information from the public, the courts, and the Congress. Operational proximity, communications which are close enough to the president to one, relevatory of his deliberations or to pose risk to the candor of his advisors are covered by the privilege. So, again, you can invoke your right to remain silent when in legislative inquiry. You can also invoke executive privilege, that is withholding information because it might affect national security or it's a very confidential matter that divulging it or disclosing it to the public would have negative consequences or bigger consequences. So there's also that balancing. Also operational proximity wherein, for example, you're an advisor of the president or close to the president, and that bawal ni Congress parang talagang pilitin yung tao close to the president to divulge or disclose information because it may prematurely affect a certain situation or problem that they're dealing with that, public knowledge would, sorry for the term, fuck it up, diba? Masyadong mapapakialaman, hindi na makagalaw, hindi naman pwedeng ganon. There are matters that have to be done behind closed doors for it to be effective and efficient, diba? A very example, very basic example why some information need to be withheld. It's, for example, if they're tracking down terrorists, diba? Should that information be made public? Of course not. Why? Very simple. It's so stupid if you don't figure it out. Kung ibabalita mo yan or papaalam mo sa public that you're tracking down terrorists and then bigay mo lahat ng information sa public, how can they catch these terrorists? How can they conduct their operations? Na-tip na rin yung terrorists, right? Di nalaman na nila yung move ng government. Di hindi na sila nahuli. So, that's just dumb. So, there are things that need to be done closed doors. Okay? Behind closed doors. Hindi lahat kailangan malaman ng public. Because sometimes, pag nalaman ng public, it could fuck it up. So, yun. Apart from that, like for example, an ongoing deal or an ongoing negotiation, ganyan. Now, there is that risk na baka binibenta na tayo, di ba, ng presidente, for example. The president can enter into treaties with other nations and stuff. That's the thing, there should be trust. It's like a relationship. There should be trust. Now, if later, down the road, we find out that the president fucked up or fucked us up, na binenta pala tayo and or entered into a deal that is favorable to him personally, merong grease money pa involved in shit like that, then that president may be impeached and may be held liable. Pero, we can't act based on distrust. We have to operate on trust. Inelect natin yung president, the majority of the constituents put their trust in the president. Therefore, we should operate on that trust, on that public trust. Because democracy naman If ever there are things na prejudicial sa Philippines due to bad decision making or malice or ill intent of the president or the other people who are authorized to act on behalf of the Filipino people, then that's something that they should pay for, and there will be consequences because it will be found out later. So that's it for legislative department, and start tayo sa executive department sa next videos. I think I'll record one right away so that matapos natin yung CONSTI1, diba? Tapos natin yung CRIM 1 So, CONSTI1 yung goal. And then, tapos natin yung property law, and then, mag-CRIM 2 tayo. CRIM 2, and then, sometimes, CONSTI 2, ganon. And then, after property naman sa civil law, we'll talk about succession. Okay, see you.